fan of books and films. You know, do you think that's going to be an interesting dynamic if people have seen the movie first and it goes to, you know, them reading the book? Do you think there will be a different level of interpretation as opposed to somebody like myself who read the book who will be watching the film?
Well, the relationship between books and films is an interesting one, sometimes problematic. You know, the usual thing that people say is that the book's always better. Now, that's not always true, first of all. There are definite exceptions to that. The one that I can think of most obviously are the James Bond books. The Ian Flemings on which the original James Bonds were based are terrible books. They're poorly written. The character of James Bond is not as suave and sexy as he is in the movies. He's, on the contrary, kind of thuggish. He drinks a lot. He's not a particularly appealing character. And yet they make wonderful, many of them are wonderful, wonderful movies. You know, very, very entertaining. However, you know, the case is that a novel is, you know, 100, 200, 300 pages. There's a lot in a novel. So in terms of sheer content, a movie is obviously a truncated version of a novel. Also, there's an interiority to a novel. You know, you read a novel, I mean, words are not anything in themselves. They're just bizarre little squiggles on a page. They only come to life once the reader interprets them. And that involvement of the reader, first of all, makes it a more elitist activity. You know, fewer people read books than see movies because you do have to make that effort. It is an intellectual effort, an effort of concentration that some people either don't want to do or don't feel capable of doing. But that is also one of the strengths of reading. Because you involve yourself, it somehow becomes more yours. In fact, I often found that, you know, with many exceptions, in fact, perhaps yourself, the people love books in ways that they don't quite usually do with cinema, precisely because you can really make a book your own. You know, the fact is that a book, I mean, Life of Pi is a perfect example. I never described Pi. It was never important to me what Pi looked like, whether he was tall or short, you know, a small nose, a big nose, a broad face, a narrow face. It really didn't matter to me at all. The exact tone of brown of his skin, this was all irrelevant to me because his appearance didn't matter. However, any reader reads a book, I suppose at one point will have a vague idea of Pi, of his appearance. You know, something brown, something young, you know, something naive. They'll have some impression. Because of that, they'll have created him. They'll have birthed them in their mind. And the same thing with everything else. The words are nothing but squiggles on the page. You have to, from there, construct some sort of imaginary reality. You have to construct Pondicherry, the zoo, the ship, the lifeboat, the tiger, the island. They all have to become something in your mind. And that act of creation makes it very, very compelling and very intimate. You know, no two people, and I've seen this from all the letters that I've received, no two people read the book in quite the same way. They have slightly different visions of it, not just of what happens, but the texture, the feel of it. So it makes it a very personal, interior experience, and it's also one that the reader entirely controls. You know, a book, you can start it, you can stop it, you can stop reading it entirely, you could reread, you could skip passages. You are, in a sense, the director when you read a book. A movie is something completely different. You know, a movie is an exterior experience. And this is blinding me obvious what I'm going to say right now, but it's a visual experience. It's obviously an auditory one, but it's primarily a visual one, controlled by someone else. So you are more a spectator. But in a sense, that lack of control also means in some ways you can open yourself up more. It just, I mean, when you're run over by a bus, it really opens you up because the bus is really big and you're squashed. In a sense, in movies like that, it really runs you over. And that overwhelmingness is part of its power. You know, the screen, your average, you know, that's why to see cinema on the size of the, you know, my little thing on the Skype thing is ridiculous because it loses its power. You know, a book isn't any better if it's a huge book. A book that's 1 meter by 2 meters is not more powerful than a book that's a tiny little pocket book. The size of a book is irrelevant, whereas the size of a screen there's a direct correlation to how powerful a movie is based on the size of the screen. The very fact that a cinema screen is enormous is part of its power. So there's something very powerful about cinema, very, very, very kinetic about it. So it's how you translate one to the other is extremely, extremely tricky. I've had no problems with it. I said some movies, some books are better than their movies. Another example of a movie that's better than the book it was based on was Blade Runner. Blade Runner is a wonderful, wonderful science fiction movie. The novella or the novel it was based on by Philip K. Dick, Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, it's not bad, but it's one of these science fiction things where the ideas are a bit better than writing, characters are a bit flat, and there's too many ideas. It doesn't have the artistry to have a honed, unified product. Blade Runner was a better movie. So there are cases like that where the movie's better than the book. Others where the book is better than the movie. In this case, in my case, I've realized there's no real point in comparing unless the movie's dreadfully bad. There's no point in comparing. What you want to do is see them as companion pieces. And Life of Pi, I think it works very, very well. A movie is, in this case, in terms of Life of Pi, the movie is fantastic at making very crystal clear what is hard to imagine otherwise. So, for example, the layout of the lifeboat, the look of the rafts, the feel of the sinking of the ship, the ferocity of the tiger, the island, the meerkats, all that comes to life in the movie. The movie won't necessarily be as good at exploring the thematic religious stuff. That's something more writerly. So each one has its strength. So I see them best as companion pieces. If you've only seen the movie and you're intrigued, then great. Read the book and you'll say, oh, that's what was hovering underneath the images. And if you read the book and then go and see the movie, because you may say, oh, well, this was missing from the book, I missed this, but then you'll say, my God, it was so visually powerful. God, now when I look at the book again, I'll see the sinking of the ship as I saw it in the movie, and I'll see the tiger as I saw it in the movie. So to me, they work very well as companion pieces.
The book is also really visual. I felt like it was, while I was reading it was something I'd created in my head very easily, and something I definitely thought was regulated to my head because technology wasn't quite, in 2001 we weren't seeing kind of the cinematic scope and magnitude of the tech side that we have now. Do you think we're at a point now where we can do that in films, that we can create something on that scale?
Technically, it's breathtaking. There are scenes with the tiger where you would swear it was, because they did use live animals. It's a mixture of live animals and CGI animals. And there are times when you would swear it is it's a live animal, and in fact it's CGI. That couldn't have been done until now. So yes, now cinema can, although they have to be careful. Art can never be reduced to technique. I've never particularly liked Salvador Dali. Salvador Dali has amazing painterly technique, but to me, I find them superficially weird. I don't find them very interesting in their content. So that he's a dazzling painter in terms of he can paint a perfect horse and twist it in all kinds of funny shapes. He can make watches melt and stuff like that. So, okay, it looks great. It looks like a photograph that's been really weirdly chopped up or melted, but so what? There's a limit to technique. So yes, now with technology, they can create any reality and make it likely. But fundamentally, cinema is a narrative art, and that has nothing to do with technique. A movie will work if it tells a story that is emotionally arousing, and also even better, if it's also intellectually arresting. That's the key to it. And that honestly can be done with just putting a camera and filming an actor who's sitting at a table speaking at the camera. If the actor is great enough and the lines are good enough, he could pull it off. Cinema comes down to storytelling, and that basically involves a camera and actors. So yes, the technology is now extraordinary in its capacity, but that still is only technique. And so, Life of Pi works in many ways because of the technique, but it's also because of Ang Lee's fine eye for what is beautiful, his fine eye for creating dynamism, So it comes down to artistry. Technology is only an expensive and an important part of that, but still only a part of it.